guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Emily if you are new here. I am so excited for this week's video. It is a really different style. So I put out on Instagram a few days ago that I wanted you guys to ask me some questions around gut health that you had, and that I was going to get a health professional on my channel to answer them. So today I have Rebecca on my channel, who is an associate nutritionist and also the head of nutrition at Probiotic. So Probiotic is a probiotics company which I take their probiotics, and I've taken them for years, and they reached out to me a few months ago and we've kind of started working together, and I am so excited for this collaboration, and I think it's going to be really insightful for you guys to hear the answers and myself to hear the answers to some of these questions from a professional standpoint. And I also think it's really useful to get your health information from professionals in their field. So yeah, Rebecca is joining me today and we are going to answer a wide variety of questions all around gut health. So let's get into the video. So I'm going to hand over to Rebecca, who's going to introduce herself. So yeah, over to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca. I'm head of nutrition at Probiotic, and I'm an associate nutritionist, and I have an interest in gut health, mainly from my own experiences. I've struggled with really bad gut health over the years, and so now I just want to help educate more people about what they can do to help, and where to turn to.
So yeah, Rebecca, I'd love to hear more about how you got into wanting to learn more about the gut, and if you've had any struggles with yourself in the past.
Yeah, so I've actually had quite a few gut problems over the years. I was always interested in science. I did biology at uni, which I really enjoyed, but it was very much looking at the cellular level, so I did a lot of gene kind of courses, which was great, but it was so scientific and not really about kind of health on the day-to-day basis. And when I was at uni, I was rowing, so I was training 12 times a week, and I was really fatigued all the time. I had loads of stomach problems. I'd get really, really bad bloating, I'd be really uncomfortable a lot of the time, and it just made me it was quite disheartening. I didn't feel comfortable all the time going out in certain clothes, or I just have really low energy. So kind of because of that, and then my own interest in sport, I looked a bit more into my own nutrition, and then that's when I started my nutrition degree. So I've got a master's in nutrition, and doing my master's and my own research actually linked together all of these kind of problems I was experiencing, and I realised it was all to do with my gut health. I've also always experienced asthma, hay fever and eczema. When I was younger, I still experience it now, and I realised actually that's to do with my gut health as well. So it's kind of through my own personal struggles I've got to this place now where I just love gut health, love talking about it, and I've learnt now how to look after my own gut health. So things like eczema and my hay fever don't affect me just as much as they did.
No, that's really cool. I think it's nice when people have had issues themselves, because then they can relate to helping others a lot more, rather than just being someone that's studied nutrition, likes to know about the gut, but they've never actually had problems themselves. They can't relate on that level of, I understand what you're going through and I really want to help you get better, because I know how difficult it can be at times.
Yeah, it can be really hard, and you're so embarrassed to talk about it. I know still my friends are so embarrassed to talk to me about any gut problems, and I'm like, this is what I do for a living, and I've also been through it all before, so just tell me everything. And if I can bring up poo in a conversation, I will. It's such a weirdly taboo subject, and I'm like, but why? We all know that we do it. Let's just discuss, because it is so related to how our gut is kind of doing. And it's one of these things that if you don't talk about it with other people, you don't realise that maybe you do have a problem, or you know that you have a problem, but you don't think that anyone else is going through it. So unless you kind of open up that conversation, it's hard to kind of get yourself to a place where you do feel better.
So we're going to jump into the questions, if that's okay with you now, Rebecca. Thank you to everyone who sent in all the questions. First one is it bad for your gut to eat a low Fodmap diet long term?
Yeah, so just to start off with this one, I'll just give a bit of a background what a Fodmap diet is. So Fodmaps are a group of carbohydrates that are quite badly absorbed by our body, and they can reach the large intestines largely unabsorbed, which can lead to things like bloating, which can cause problems for people. It can also lead to excess fluid as well, which can lead to watery stools and diarrhea. So normally people kind of experience this day to day, and it can be quite normal, and our body can cope with it. But especially for people with IBS, these foods, they'll be really, really sensitive to them, and this excess fluid and bloating is just a bit more severe than people who aren't experiencing IBS. So the low FODMAP diet is a way of removing these foods from the diet to help control the symptoms. It's normally the second line approach for IBS. So the first one is going through things like spicy food, caffeine, to have a look if just there's something like that that's causing these symptoms. And then if that doesn't work and you can't identify a specific kind of food group, we then look at a low FODMAP diet. But it is a really, really restrictive diet. So if you are thinking about doing it, it should only be alongside a dietitian, because you are going to cut out some really major food groups and you can be missing some really important nutrients. And the low FODMAP diet isn't a long-term diet. It's a reduction stage, so the first one when you cut out the majority of these FODMAP foods, and then you look to reintroduce these foods, so you get to learn how your body reacts to certain foods, what ones that you can cope with. So by the end you will reach this kind of long-term diet where you have some of these FODMAP foods back in and you're eating them and your body kind of knows how to cope. So in summary, it's not a long-term diet. It's something that you should try for about 2 to 6 months normally, kind of depending on your own IBS. And then it's something that you reintroduce these FODMAPs. So it's a really personalised diet. So it's not something that you say, well, my friend can only eat X, Y, and Z, so therefore I can only eat X, Y, and Z. It's completely personalised to you.
It's really interesting to hear, actually, because I was advised to go on a low FODMAP diet a few years ago when I first got like IBS symptoms, and the doctor was really broad. He was just like, yeah, you just need to cut these foods out and you should be fine. And so like, is there any advice you'd give to people that maybe have had that, I've been told that from like a doctor or a GP that maybe doesn't know as much about nutrition?
Yeah, so first of all, if someone does say to you, go on a low FODMAP diet, the first thing you should do is reach out to a dietitian and work with them about how to actually carry out this low FODMAP diet. As I said, you're cutting out some really major food groups, so you're going to miss some really important nutrients. You also can affect your gut microbiota by cutting out these food groups, and if that IBS does have some links to your gut bacteria, so if you're then kind of depriving them more, then it can actually make your IBS even worse. So I'd say definitely speak to a dietitian first, do a bit of your own research so you exactly kind of understand what it is, and make sure that you then do, with a dietitian again, work through that reintroduction phase. As I really hate when people are at a point when they're just scared to eat these foods, and some of them are things like onion and garlic, which is so restrictive if you can't eat them because they're the base of so many meals. So if someone does say to you, try a low FODMAP diet, then great, because we see there's about a 70% success rate in individuals with IBS. So it is something, if you want to try it, I definitely encourage you to, but do it with the right sort of people, do your own research, and just so you know, it's not a forever diet. That is not the aim of it. I don't want you to get kind of food avoidance, worrying about foods. It is about knowing what foods your body can kind of cope with and in what quantities.
I wish someone had explained that to me when I was going through that stage, so that's really useful for me, and I'm sure lots of other people watching this video. Can certain medication cause constipation, and what can I do to cure it without taking laxatives?
Yes, so there are certain medication that might lead to constipation just because medication can just affect the function of our gut microbiome. Usually these effects aren't really long lasting, and once you come off the medication, your gut will just kind of go back to normal, but it can be really uncomfortable if you are experiencing these. So for constipation, I would just recommend having a diet full of fibre. So think of like your wholemeal bread, brown pasta, oats, making sure you're drinking plenty of water, and you're kind of just exercising enough. So I normally say at least 20 minutes a day, even if that's just a quick walk at lunchtime, is perfect, and that will just kind of help keep everything moving. If that's still not enough, you could take stuff like prunes and kiwis are really good for kind of helping prevent constipation, and also psyllium husk and flax seeds. You can get these in supplements, or you can just get them in like almost like the raw form, and they basically just absorb water really well. which can then help add bulk to your poo, so then will helps reduce the constipation. So that's something else you could try.
And I guess just to, because some people might define constipation differently, like, because obviously everyone's different. Some people might think, oh, if I only poo once a day, I'm constipated. But what actually is constipation? Like, how do you know if you're constipated?
Yeah, so everyone obviously goes to the toilet different times a day. There are some people that if they go once a day, that is perfect for them, or some people 2 to 3 times a day, others every other day. And there's not really a right or wrong here. It's really just down to your own body. So I think the thing with constipation is actually just knowing how often and regular you go and thinking, am I going less? Am I going more than normal? It also can be, if you're constipated, just feeling quite uncomfortable. You'll just feel like you can't really empty your bowels properly. If you go to the toilet and you kind of get that feeling where there's still kind of more to go. Can't think of a nicer way to say that. So it's more of a feeling, and then there'll be stuff like, as well, if you're really maybe bloated, your stomach feels quite hard, and that will be signs. But it's not like if you don't go every day, then that means that you're constipated, because that for you just might be normal. But if you're if you have several days where you're not going, I think that's when you should start to think, actually, am I getting enough fibre? Am I drinking enough? Am I moving enough? And that's kind of the sign to show that you might be constipated.
So I think this is going to be quite a common one. A lot of people experience this. So is daily bloating normal? Is it always caused by gas formation? And is there any way to manage it? Yeah,
this is a great question. As someone who has experienced bloating quite badly in the past, I can fully empathise with you. It's just awful. It feels awful, especially if you're about to go out and you want to wear a certain outfit and you're so bloated. You're just like, what do I do? Yeah, so bloating is just caused by the gas, really, that our bacteria produce when they're eating the foods. And this can cause pressure in our stomach and can result in kind of this physical protrusion, which is just a food baby, basically, is what we call it. So this is completely normal. This will just happen as your bacteria just ferment these foods. But obviously in some people it can be worse. If you do have IBS, this will feel a lot worse for you, and you might be more sensitive to certain foods. Even if you don't have IBS as well, you might just be a bit more sensitive to some foods, and it can result in this bloating kind of being worse than like normal, or what we would expect kind of day to day. So again, one thing that I would recommend if you are experiencing bloating is start writing a food diary, and write down exactly when you're experiencing bloating, kind of how painful it is, how long it takes to kind of go away, because it might be that it's just kind of avoidance to food, and maybe your stomach just doesn't like something in too high quantities. Me, for example, I had the worst bloating probably a week at uni, like couldn't sleep, it was just so painful. And it turned out I was just eating too many raw tomatoes. I was just going on an absolute like tomato high with my lunch. And then I stopped eating them and I was completely fine. And I still eat tomatoes now, but I just know that I can't eat them every day for my lunch. So it can sometimes just be that you're eating too much of one certain food. It could as well be if your meals are really big, and this can result in bloating. So sometimes we just recommend that people have maybe 5 to 6 smaller meals during the day. And things like physical activity can really help. So maybe 20 to 30 minutes after you've eaten, just go for a quick walk. Or some yoga poses can actually really help. And things like peppermint tea and ginger tea are also really good at just kind of helping calming our stomach and can help reduce the bloating. And I mean, the two kind of biggest things that I actually see for bloating, one is stress. If you are having a really like stressful day, especially if you find that your bloating almost like builds up during the day, it might be related to stress. And in that case, at the end of the day, it's great to just do something like yoga, some mindfulness, or just go for a walk, and that can really help. And the other one, it sounds a little bit obscure, but it's called tight pant syndrome, and it's because we're all wearing such like high-waisted jeans, high-waisted leggings now, and this can actually cause bloating. So it's something to just be a bit mindful of and think about, actually, what am I wearing when I'm eating? If it is always really tight clothing kind of around your waist, this can actually make bloating quite painful and quite bad. So now we're working at home, it's a great time to just after lunch just put on some trackies or something loose and seeing if that helps.
I think it's good to know that obviously, like, when you eat a meal, your stomach will naturally expand, and that isn't necessarily bloating, that is just a natural bodily process, isn't it? So
yeah, exactly. So it is completely natural. So if you are bloating, don't think, oh my gosh, what am I allergic to? What am I not doing right? It is completely normal. But obviously, if it is causing you kind of discomfort, you will just want to do, like, little lifestyle changes can actually really help. But if it is a continuous, like, day-to-day basis, then I would just discuss it with your GP, because there might be kind of an underlying issue.
Yeah, I remember when I had my, like, really bad bloating phase, I was at uni, I was really stressed, and my GP, they gave me peppermint tablets, which did help. They did really help, so I can definitely vouch for the peppermint helping with bloating. But stress as well, definitely a big thing, I think, for bloating. This is quite an interesting one for me and a lot of people that watch my channel, linking to, like, the skin. So does gut health directly influence skin health?
Yes, there's actually been loads of interesting studies about this. So an altered gut microbiome can lead to skin conditions like eczema and acne. So there is some really interesting studies that a probiotic can help look after your skin, but also it's just important to be eating the right sort of foods for your skin, because this will benefit your gut, which will then in turn benefit your skin. So make sure you're eating a really diverse range of foods. Plant-based diets have shown to improve your skin health. So I'm not saying to do a solely plant-based diet, because also things like omega-3, which is found in oily fish, can also really help. But just making sure that you are getting in those plant-based foods as well. Things like flavonoids, which is a antioxidant, so things like dark chocolate and green tea can also really help. And lycopene, so this is the red pigment that's found in certain foods, can also help protect our skin from UV radiation. So these are all really great things to include.
Since going vegan, I often feel bloated. How can I combat this, and what could be causing it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I know people that have kind of switched to a largely vegan diet do experience more bloating. Like we said earlier on, bloating is completely normal, so it's nothing to kind of worry about. But obviously, if it is really uncomfortable, you kind of want to do ways to kind of help control it. So normally we see if people do switch to a vegan diet, because they'll really up their fibre intake, because they'll be having more like legumes, and they might be having some more like whole meals, and relying maybe slightly more on carbohydrate based foods, they will just naturally have a bit more bloating, because your gut will just be a bit more active because the bacteria are just digesting some more food. So this normally kind of just goes away as time goes on, as your body just really adjusts. But if you do want to kind of help kind of combat it, I would say maybe slightly decrease your fibre intake and just work slowly up, or split your meals into maybe 5 or 6 smaller meals throughout the day. And if you are having lots of beans and pulses, just wash them really, really well before you start cooking with them, and that can also help.
Now, I remember when I first went vegan, I did like a massive shift, and my fibre intake just went up so massively, because I was eating a lot of like raw foods, and yeah, I just remember I felt bloated all the time, and like almost constantly. So yeah, I think slow and steady and like gradually umping up your fruit and vegetable intake would definitely help with that.
So often when people go vegan, they can just switch overnight, and while this is great and there are benefits of a vegan diet, you have got to remember that you're having a complete lifestyle switch, really. So if you are wanting to go vegan, I do actually recommend that maybe just start slowly and work your way up, just so your body can get used to these foods, so your body's not having this kind of jerk reaction where you're really bloating. I know people also fart a lot when they go vegan to start off with, because their body's like, whoa. So yeah, it's just kind of work your way up, and just learn exactly what your body kind of can take. And that will be quite beneficial, because I mean, some people can eat a whole can of lentils and be absolutely fine, and other people's like 2 mouthfuls of lentils and they're so bloated. So it's just really getting to know your body and knowing exactly just what you can kind of cope and manage with.
Yeah, and it's difficult, I suppose, with going vegan. I went vegan overnight, and I think because you become so passionate about like why you're doing it, and it's for the animals and for the planet, so it's really tempting just to be like, that is it, I'm not eating any more animal products. And that's what I did, and I can understand, I could completely see how beneficial it would be actually to do it really gradually, but at the same time, because you want to be so like you know, you want to suddenly become this best vegan version of yourself that you can be. You just do it overnight in like a flick of a switch.
Yeah, it is a big switch. And I mean, also, if you do want to do that overnight, then like that is also fine, but it's just being kind of aware that this will happen and it will take time for your body to adjust. So not being like totally put off by it right at the beginning, and just kind of being just aware of these changes.
So can you explain more about probiotics and if we should be taking them?
Yeah, so probiotics are these live beneficial bacteria that have benefits for our digestive system, our immune system, mood, skin and sleep. So there's so much research now about exactly how probiotics can be beneficial. New research really every day. Kind of, it's important to approach it with kind of caution. If you're having a really unhealthy diet, if you're not really getting enough exercise, not drinking enough, probiotics aren't going to be kind of your saving grace. It's important to incorporate it all together. But it's definitely something to look into if you are struggling. And I mean, to know if you need to take them is really hard, because like I said, our gut relates to so many different things. It's not just all about our digestive system and how regular we are. It can be to like our immune system, how often we get sick, our mood, if we're experiencing really low mood all the time, if we're not really sleeping very well, if we have bad skin, something like eczema or acne can actually be related to our gut microbiome. So there's a really whole host of ways that probiotics can potentially help. If you're thinking of taking them, I would just reach out to companies. They should have a nutritionist, dietitian or a GP working with them. So like I said, I work Pro by 7 and we actually run one-to-one free nutrition consultations. So you can just chat to me and explain really your individual needs, why you think you might want to take them. And I can just recommend whether if that is a probiotic from our range, or if there's another one that I want to point you towards, or ways that you can maybe change your diet or lifestyle, and how that can help. So I will leave a link actually in the bio. So if anyone does want to book a call with me, they can.
Yeah, no, I would highly recommend, guys. Like, it's so useful to hear advice from a professional in this field, because it is overwhelming and you never know what's going to be best for you, and it's better to get advice from someone professional rather than just diving in on your own.
Yeah, the research out there is just, there's so much, and sometimes I get people that call me and they're like, I've had this, and sometimes it's not true, and it can be a bit scaremongering. I think sometimes people get really worried, or they're like, oh, I have a bad gut, so I've cut out all of these major food groups, when actually they didn't need to do that. So I just think, obviously do a bit of your own research, because I think it is really important to have some kind of knowledge about the kind of subject. But yeah, just talk to someone. Like I read all these papers. I have obviously the training in nutrition, so I will be able to help.
Right, definitely. I think you're going to get a lot of requests, Rebecca, after this video, so be prepared. Okay, so I want to start taking probiotics, but there are so many on the market. Do you have any recommendations?
Yeah, so it can be so overwhelming, especially nowadays. There's so many available, which on the one hand is absolutely great. There's so many options for people, but on the other hand, if you are looking to start it and you haven't had one before, it's really overwhelming, and you get people who have taken them recommending you different ones, and it is, yeah, just so hard to know. So the first thing I would just say is, if you are looking to have a probiotic for maybe a certain symptom that you're experiencing, just do a little bit of research and think, is there evidence there that the symptom I'm experiencing can be helped with probiotics? And then the next thing I would do is actually just maybe contact a few companies that are supplying these probiotics and just get kind of their advice. They normally will have like a nutritionist or a dietitian or even a GP working with them, who have done all the research for you and can recommend the right product, the right bacteria they should be having for the right duration. Because there's so much research out there, it can be really hard to sort the fact from fiction. And these are the people with the knowledge, they've done all the research. So I would just turn to them and just get their advice and see what they say. I mean, we all have such a unique gut, and we find that some people will respond really, really well to one probiotic, but not well to another. So it can be a bit of a trial and error, which is obviously really, really hard if you've been struggling for a while and you just want it sorted. So sometimes it won't be a quick fix. But But I think if it is something that you're kind of looking to try, definitely do your research, have a look what's out there, but just be mindful of the fact that you might have to just try a few, and you might have to ask a few companies a bit more information about theirs and if it can help you.
In terms of like trying probiotics, how long would you say to recommend trialing one before you think, okay, actually no, I want to move on? Because obviously people can get quite bored and they probably think, oh, it's not working, but realistically, how long do you need to give it before it will actually take some effect?
Yeah, so I always say a minimum of 4 weeks, which can seem quite long, but if you're doing it for any less, you're not really going to know if the probiotic's helping. So I would say 4 weeks, and during that 4 weeks I think it's really helpful to just write everything down, write exactly what you're eating, what days you took the probiotic, and any symptoms you're experiencing, as this will just help you kind of work out if the probiotic's helping. If it's not, it might be something that you want to then discuss with your GP or a nutritionist or a dietitian, and then you can actually say to them like, look, this is my 4-week diary and this is what I've been kind of experiencing over these 4 weeks. Is there anything else you can kind of offer me that might help? Because it might be, if it is to do with the kind of food sensitivity or an intolerance or an allergy, then actually the probiotic's only going to do so much. You actually need to have a look at your diet.
Cool, we're going to move on to the next one. So is it safe to take a prebiotic with a probiotic?
Yeah, so again, I'll just kind of define each of the terms because they can be used quite interchangeably and people don't like always understand what is the difference. So a prebiotic is a type of fibre that reaches your large intestines largely undigested. So we are unable to kind of digest these foods ourselves. So we rely on our gut bacteria to just ferment them and eat them for us. And then our gut bacteria produces beneficial compounds. They're called short chain fatty acids, and these have really beneficial properties way beyond our gut. So then we have probiotics, which are live beneficial bacteria that can have an impact on our gut, immunity, mood, skin and sleep, and are so important in kind of helping the function of our gut and making sure it stays kind of just happy and healthy. So probiotics and prebiotics can definitely be taken together. Some people suggest that actually they should be taken together because there's no point taking these prebiotics if you don't have the right bacteria to eat that kind of fibre, and also vice versa. You're kind of, if you're having the probiotics but they're not having anything to eat, they're not going to grow and thrive. So definitely safe and encouraged to take both at the same time.
And just a follow-up question on that, like, how would you know, I guess, if you are getting enough prebiotics in your diet, and you'd know if you need to add any more, like in any sort of other form? Like, will you get enough just for a normal sort of diet, or?
Yeah, so you can normally, by having just a really well-balanced diet, plenty of fibre, you will have enough. But normally we find people maybe struggling with digestive issues. It's something that they might want to try, either a prebiotic or a probiotic.
So on the last question, so this is a really broad one. I don't know if you'll be able to answer. I'm intrigued to hear your answer on this one. So the best food for gut health.
I'm afraid this is going to be an exciting one-word answer. I don't have one particular food that I recommend for good gut health. It's a really combination of everything. So having a really diverse diet. I actually say aim for at least 30 different plant-based foods in your week. And this is a really great way to make sure that you're eating just a really wide diversity of foods. Even if you are having what you think is a really, really healthy diet, if you're having the same thing every day, this is not going to be great for your gut. So it's actually really nice, maybe do it with a friend or a family member, have a little competition who can eat the most plant-based foods in a week. Me and my mum did it actually, so we wrote everything down and it was quite fun actually. You can make a little game out of it. And then every time you go to the supermarket, try and buy something different, or each week maybe cook with an ingredient that you wouldn't normally cook with, and that's a really great way to introduce some diversity. Other really good things for gut health is making sure that you're staying hydrated, so drinking at least 2 litres of water every day, and getting plenty of exercise. So I'd say a minimum of 20 minutes per day. Things like mindfulness, reducing stress will also really help. So anything like yoga or meditation. It can be a bit daunting, I think, for people when they first start off. But I definitely think it's something that you should include every day, really. And then also fermented foods is something else you can try. So fermented foods like kefir, kombucha, miso have live beneficial bacteria in them. So they can have like beneficial effects on your guts. So that's something else you could look to include as well.
I thought you were going to say, I did think, like, surely there's not just one food that is the best for gut health, because if you just ate one food, I'm sure your gut would be in like a terrible state if you just had one food.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah, it's a bit of everything. And also some people really love like one food that'll be really good for them, but others not so much. Like I said earlier, like I cannot have too many raw tomatoes. And so it is just finding a balance about what your gut likes and what your gut doesn't like. And yeah, I would just say just try everything and just try and be really open-minded about trying new foods, especially things like fermented foods. Maybe we might be a bit like, oh, what are they? But they can actually be really great for your gut as well.
Yeah, I love sauerkraut. It's like one of my favourite things to have. It's so good.
Yeah, you can also make it so easily. Like I make kefir and kombucha myself just because it can be quite expensive in the supermarkets, and they can add like unnecessary like sugars and additives. And so it's so easy to make. The same with sauerkraut, and it's quite fun as well. So definitely recommend trying.
That's like another fun hobby to do during lockdown, right?
Yeah.
Cool. I think, is that all the questions?
Yeah, I think we're done.
Yeah, wow, okay. That's going to be really beneficial, I think, for everyone. I hope it is. It's been beneficial for me just listening to your answers, Rebecca, so I can't thank you enough for like coming on the channel and being a part of this. So I guess, yeah, like Rebecca said, there's going to be a link in the description box to where you can have like a one-to-one session with her if you want. It's completely free, like she said, so if you are struggling with your gut in any way, I couldn't recommend it enough. All I've got left to say is thank you so much, Rebecca, for being on my channel. This has been really great. I've never done anything like this, so you are the first. And yeah, if you guys enjoyed this video, please give it a like. Leave me any comments down below. If you've got any other questions, feel free to leave them in the comments or share your story. And yeah, if you're new here, please subscribe. And I will see you next week in my next video. Bye for now.